REE Podcast, episode number 5.
Welcome to the ARE Podcast. ARE Podcast, where it's all about encouraging and inspiring you today so you can fulfill your dream of becoming a licensed architect tomorrow. And now your host. He was rear-ended 2 days after getting his driver's license. David Doucette.
Hello, and welcome back to our 5th episode of the ARE Podcast here. And today we're joined, as always, by our co-host, the man in black, Mr. Eric Corey Freed.
I'm feeling edgy today, so I wore black.
You're channeling Johnny Bet Cash today, so you're in Hermosa Beach. What's going on?
I'm in beautiful Hermosa Beach. I love it here, by the way. I want to live here. It's so cute. And I'm in black because I have to go to like 3 events today, and I need the versatility of it. But I also kind of realized that all of my clothes are like garanimals. They all kind of match. So it doesn't really matter what I wear.
And today we are going to talk about your adventures at GreenBuild, which happened just over a week ago. And for those of you who don't, I guess, know of you yet, obviously you're one of the main guys in the green building movement, but you attended GreenBuild as an attendee, as an ambassador for the Living Building Challenge, as an exhibitor of sorts, and as a speaker. And you had a big speaking gig there, so we're going to hear all about that. And
I was treated poorly at each of those just things. Just bad treatment.
And is it true what they say about what happens at GreenBuild stays at GreenBuild?
No, because there's Facebook and Twitter and everybody posting damn photos of me doing stupid things. So no, it's not true.
Stupid things like what? Staying up late or drinking too many Diet Cokes?
Oh, it took me a week to recover. I was really beat. I just over Thanksgiving just finally caught up on my sleep.
All right, so let's start off talking about what exactly is GreenBuild and why should we care as young architects?
GreenBuild is now the largest green building conference in the world. It has also become the de facto kind of annual check-in event for the green building community. And since green buildings now constitute some 10 to 12% of all buildings being built, and the trend is that eventually it'll head to 100, it's important for anyone in the building community, architects, builders, designers. So you get a great, diverse group of people there, not just the diehard greenies, but there's as many people in suit and ties as there are in tie-dye T-shirts. I don't know what the alternative would be.
Is it becoming more mainstream now?
Here's how mainstream it is. Our keynote speaker was Hillary Clinton.
Very cool.
The next day was Sean Donovan, the cabinet secretary for HUD. I mean, that's as mainstream as it gets, I think. And then the performing act was Bon Jovi. So I don't know how much more mainstream it could get other than Bob Saget hosting next year, really.
Or Howie Mandel,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what's cool, I mean, this is the green building event because obviously there's a lot of these that go on throughout the year, but this is the one. This is the one that's equivalent if we're going to make it equivalent to something, the AIA convention. Like it's that big to the green building industry.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the AIA convention. I think in large part the reason GreenBuild has bloomed so much, especially in the last few years, is because the AIA convention has largely ignored sustainability, and that could be a whole other podcast episode in and of itself. But the AIA, for various reasons, has been kind of lackluster in their sustainable performance. So that really gave rise to this need for some sort of convention, and it really is kind of a sharpen your saw, get inspired for the next 12 months kind of event. We all look forward to it, and it's usually in the end of November, the week before Thanksgiving, and they do it in a different city every year. Last year was San Francisco, this year was Philadelphia, next year is New Orleans.
And Philadelphia is your hometown, if I'm correct.
Yeah, to further add to the surreality of it all, it was my hometown where I grew up, and so here's 35,000 people, many of which I know, saying, "Gosh, Philadelphia! They've never been to Philadelphia before. It's so cute." And I'm thinking, yeah, why don't you go up to North Philadelphia a little bit? Go at 12th and Girard at night and tell me how cute you think it is. And then as we were driving around, people in the car didn't believe me. I was driving around and I said, "Oh, I got mugged there. And my car got broken into there, and I held at gunpoint there." And they thought I was joking, but unfortunately, it wasn't.
And how many years has GreenBuild been going on?
I should probably know that. It started in Austin with a very small group. I think my memory is it's been 11 years.
Okay.
Because I think last year was the big 10-year deal.
And they had you said they had about 35,000 people attend this year.
Yeah, the final numbers aren't in, but it's usually between 25 to 30 or so, and then there's about 4,000 exhibitors. So all told, in the house can be, on the busiest day, might be 40,000 people with drop-ins, exhibitors, attendees, speakers, all told. So it's massive.
I know you were very excited about it, and texting you throughout while you were there when I could get a hold of you. You were. Very excited. So let's talk first about maybe just talk briefly about the keynotes. Were they interesting? Were they sort of green building related? Since we have sort of now these mainstream speakers, are they just giving us, are they giving us stuff we've heard before? Or are they saying something new about the green building?
The keynote speakers all focused on green building. Hillary Clinton's speech, which we're going to have in our show notes, so you can watch it online, was okay, in my opinion. It really started to get interesting afterwards because she sat down in conversation with Rick Fedrizzi, who's the president of the USGBC, and that was much better. The speech I really liked was actually Sean Donovan, the Cabinet Secretary for Housing and Urban Development, who said, "We are committed to tripling the amount of renewable energy by 2020, and here's how we're going to do it. We're focused on green affordable housing. Here's how we're going to do it." He really laid out a pretty specific roadmap. The other speakers, there's multiple sessions going on, are all focused on various aspects of sustainability. And you actually, there's always 10 different talks going on at any time, and like a typical conference. So the hard part is picking which one you want to attend, and that's. Oftentimes you'll pick a boring one and you'll regret it.
What is the sort of overall message or the overall feeling of, okay, we have these great plans in place for renewable energy, and, we obviously got a lot of other stuff going on in sort of the economic environment, and some could argue more pressing issues. But what is the feeling like? Who is going to deliver the hope for sort of the green building movement, the hope of this renewable energy? I mean, are they specifically looking at sort of architects and urban planners to lead the way?
They're looking, I don't know who you want to blame on this, but we environmentalists have realized that there's a multi-pronged approach that we need to take. It can't just be a group of subculture architects, creating a little niche as this subdivision of bigger architecture. Just the little group of hippies. And we tried that. It didn't work. It also can't just be through regulation. We can't just force it down people's throats the way we're doing in California alone. I mean, that's important. And it can't just be consumer demand. It's really got to be all three at once. The building owners need to ask for better buildings and demand it in terms of health, in terms of energy, in terms of water. The regulations need to essentially create a level playing field, so that way it forces everybody to do it and lowers the price for everybody. And the architects need to start offering it. One of the things that I mentioned in my talk was this new study that just came out from Building Design and Construction, and it came out a week before GreenBuild. And it was a poll of, I think, 13,000 architects, if I remember. And a whopping 62% essentially said that they just wait to be asked. They wait for the clients to come in and ask them to give them a green building. And I was so upset about that. I just thought it was so pathetic that I ended up putting it in my speech.
And wasn't there something about 80% of architects never worked on a green project or something like that? Some high number like that.
Never even touched it. Never even touched a LEED or a deep green project. So it was an incredibly high number. Which that part didn't bother me as much because in ways, as this is a nascent movement, you're going to have the early adopters covering most of it. I mean, that part makes sense. But the fact that these architects are kind of, gosh, I hope a client doesn't come in and ask me about a green building. I mean, is that really what's going on? It was scary.
Yeah, and this is actually probably another topic which we should make on our sort of list of ideas, because this is a good one.
Write it down.
Yeah, I know, because I have my own thoughts on this, and part of it is I think we as architects. Many of us are just trying to get by and are just trying to get whatever work we can get, so and thankful for whatever work we can get. And I think, many of us don't want to sort of upset the cart and be like, hey, do you want to do green building? And then the client goes away. So, I have experience in green design and construction. I did it for 3 years. But yeah, that's another show topic, but it is an interesting one. So, So basically, your take is we're all in this together. Everybody's got to sort of come together, and it'll be interesting to watch. Okay, so is that sort of the highlights of the keynote or the keynotes that you saw?
Yeah, I mean the purpose of the keynote is to inspire the troops. That's really the purpose of it. So they tend to pick keynotes like that. Last year was I don't even remember who last year was. But the year before that
was it Aria Huffington? No,
God no. The year before that was Toronto, and that was Thomas Friedman, who was amazing.
Right.
So it's that kind of caliber of people. The real learning and doing comes in the breakout sessions. The various breakout sessions that occur.
Okay.
And my personal goal for GreenBuild was to learn about net zero water. Because I'd been doing a lot of net zero energy buildings that produce more energy than they consume. So now I want to try to do that with water, and nobody's really doing that yet. And so every track I took was kind of fixated on water.
And let's talk about that. So our next topic here, you're an ambassador for the Living Building Challenge in
Right.
your quest for net zero energy and net zero water. So what is that about?
Well, net zero energy is pretty almost easy compared to net zero water because energy is expensive. So it's easy for me to go to a client and go, hey, you know how much you're spending on electricity and gas? Well, we can save you that money, and here's how, and I can calculate it out. Water, on the other hand, is incredibly subsidized by our government, and so it's relatively cheap. The price has been going up over the last 10 years, but it's still incredibly cheap. So to justify it to an owner, you can't make the financial argument. You got to do other arguments.
Right, and that's one of the things. And water levels, I think, really probably throughout the country are down. I know they are in California. The reservoirs aren't nearly as high as they are. Lake Mead in Nevada is not nearly as high as it used to be. And I think water is too cheap. And I think water's got to become more expensive so people take it seriously and be like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't run the water while I brush my teeth or whatever, or throw 50 gallons on the front lawn because, I want it to be greener. So who knows?
It's also a bit of a weird thing because if you look at our water usage, especially in California, 2/3 of it goes to agriculture because we are a big agricultural state. So that's statewide. So you think, well, in terms of architecture, I can't really control that. But if you go into a city, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, and you look at the non-agricultural areas, then suddenly the water use is really about 80% in our buildings, and of that, 2/3 of it is wasted outside because we're sprinkling the lawn. So we found that just by changing the landscape, we can save tremendous amounts of water. And then of course inside the building, ultra low flow fixtures, toilets, shower heads, faucets, waterless fixtures, urinals, composting toilets can save a tremendous amount of water, and that also ties into an energy issue because it takes a lot of energy to process, filter, and pump all that water too. So it's all kind of tied together.
And it is interesting. I mean, with the technology and the advances today, it is incredible that our buildings aren't designed to essentially reduce water use. But like you said, water is so cheap. It's not the incentive is not there for building owners to necessarily, put that first of mind.
So, I did an all-day workshop on net zero water with the Living Futures Institute, the people that do the Living Building Challenge. And, the room is filled with, really cutting-edge green experts. I mean, really impressive people. And they're all experts in hydrology and water. And the guy spent the first hour just doing, water 101 kind of, we have droughts and the Southwest is hot, and finally I raised my hand and I said, dude, this is a smart room. You can go a lot faster, lot faster. And everybody applauded because it was getting boring, and then afterwards, Richard Graves, he's the head of the Living Futures Institute. He came up and I thought he was going to be mad at me, but he said, thank you for doing that because, I didn't know where to start. So, thanks for, kind of telling me.
Right.
And the rest of the day went great after that. It was really, I learned a lot.
And this, what you were involved with that day, this is not, a few people sitting around a table. This is serious stuff. You have probably the smartest people, I would imagine, dealing with water who's in this movement. They're in the room with you, right? This is a big deal.
Yeah, we're all trying to figure it out.
Right.
Everybody in the room knows how to do a LEED building. That's easy.
Right.
We're all trying to do living buildings, which is a building that's actually regenerating its environment, and that's a lot harder. And we've all been playing with net zero buildings, but now everybody in the room was basically like me, obsessed with net zero water. And so we really hashed like real detailed, heavy duty, like how much did that cost, and what did you find with this, and how did it work with this, and we were grilling, everybody back and forth.
Did you guys have good case studies for net zero water, or is it still pretty new that we're just trying to figure out how to do it?
No, the workshop was amazing because they brought in 3 case studies of 3 net zero water projects, and the project teams were there. And so they stood up in front of the room and basically went through it, and it wasn't a typical presentation in that they didn't present it as, here's a solution you can copy. They presented it as, we're still trying to figure this out. We don't know the data on this. We're trying this. It didn't work, so then we tried this. It was really helpful in that regard to get that kind of insider feedback. Ultimately, at the end, we all kind of also concluded, well, it's not enough for the architects to demand it. It's not enough for the clients to want it, but then we also need new regulations because the truth is that we still have building inspectors and plumbers unions that are still the biggest block to a lot of these things. Plumbers unions who, they fight to make sure that waterless urinals are not allowed or they're banned because they think it puts plumbers out of work and that kind of thing.
Right. And that was basically a one-day thing where you focused on sort of the net zero water?
That was day one. I arrived Monday. Tuesday was the net zero water thing, and then Tuesday night started the parties. And then Wednesday was the opening of the actual conference, and I was on the conference floor for 5 or 6 hours, going to there's 4,000 exhibitors, so every booth, and some of the booths were 20-minute conversations. And again, it was like I was helping them with questions,
And did they have the answers? Like, were they ready?
No, because I found that if I talked to a young person, eventually, very quickly, they'd go, oh, I don't know that. You better talk to my boss.
Right.
Well, how's this work? And how did you account for this? And how does this, and then they'd bring the old guy in or the old lady in, and then he or she would then be able to give me, the real. And it's funny because I have this, when I really want to know something, I guess I get very intense because a lot of people were doing this thing with their head and then saying, wow, you really know a lot about blank, like whatever it is that whatever booth we were in.
Yeah, you don't give up. You're pretty tenacious.
So, for instance, there's a company called Aquatherm. They make this non-metallic plumbing pipe that's recycled and recyclable. It comes in different colors, and you can spot weld it. It's pretty cool. But they just came out with this radiant cooling system, and it's this little plastic grid, and you just basically just set it on your ceiling tiles, your suspended ceiling tiles, and it'll just radiate coolness. So I was just grilling the guy with questions. It about weight and about plumbing supply and about drainage and about this and about, because that's how you learn.
And you were there, I guess pseudo representing a few companies: REE Wall Materials, Enlightened, I Live, and ECOR. What's the deal with those materials?
So those 4 companies, I was, I'm kind of on the advisory board of pretty much all of them, not Enlightened, but the other 3. But I was kind of representing them at the show. And REE Wall Materials, for instance, they have this alternative to drywall that's made of recycled juice boxes. So like milk cartons, juice cartons, the little ones, the big ones. They take all this stuff and they make it into this 4-foot wide board that replaces drywall. It's amazing.
Wow. Does it work?
Yeah, it works great. So any instance of drywall or OSB, you can use REE Wall instead. And
the whole product is 5/8 inch thick. It's all that material?
Yeah, it comes in 5/8 or half. It comes 48 wide, just like drywall. It tapes. It's got a paper side, and then it has an unfinished side, so you can see the juice boxes if you want.
Right.
But typically, you turn that down. The paper side, once it's installed, you'd never know.
Okay.
And I even designed their little display. So I did this CNC thing where I took sheets of REE Wall and cut it and folded it together and made this weird organic sculpture thing that was in their booth. Enlightened makes this little sensor. It's like this big, and it inserts in each light fixture and lets the light fixture communicate with a master control. And you can tie it to motion sensing, occupancy sensing. You can turn off and on lights individually. It's relatively cheap, and essentially with the energy savings pays for itself pretty quickly. And so it just makes for a smarter building. So I'm kind of obsessed with that technology too. Then there's another materials company I'm representing called ECOR. They make this bio-based board made out of agricultural waste. It's basically paper and straw. And it looks like masonite. It's just a thin little board, but you can bend it and mold it and cut it and do all this amazing stuff with it. And it's cradle-to-cradle certified, and it's incredibly. You could probably eat it if you wanted to. It's just a really cool material. So I was handing out samples of that in my presentation too, just because I'm just obsessed with this idea. And then the 4th company that I'm representing and I'm on the advisory board of is called I Live, and it's a collaborative software company. And people use it to manage their LEED projects and their green projects. And you can go on and share information with teams, and it's really very well done. And it not only helps you collaborate, but also helps you kind of look at a more kind of integrated project delivery type of thing.
Is it LEED specific?
Well, it's got a lot of LEED in it, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
You can use it to manage any project really. It's very, very well done, and it's just iliv.com.
Cool. So let's talk about. Before we do that, I want to hit. Which one do I want to hit? Let's hit this one.
This podcast is brought to you by ArchitectExamPrep.com, home of the ultimate hole enchilada. Is your brain ready?
Alrighty, so let's talk about what you did as a speaker, because this is exciting because this was a bigger room for you, and it's recorded. And is it online now, or we have to wait?
No, they haven't put it online yet.
Okay.
I'm waiting for it. So this is my 5th year speaking at GreenBuild, and it's my 2nd or 3rd speaking with my friend Matthew Grokoff, who's this net zero energy consultant in Ann Arbor, and he's great. And so we have a lot of fun together, and he's very sweet and kind and compassionate, so it really complements my kind of grumpiness really well. I mean literally, because when he speaks, people are crying, and he's so sweet. And then I come out and tell fart jokes, basically. So they told us this year, hey, Matt, hey, Eric, congratulations. We're giving you a special set, which is this weird stage that looks like Liberace's bedroom. And it's a bigger room. And she said, and I said, well, how big is it? And she said, well, this room holds 600. And I said, oh, it's not big enough. And she just kind of rolled her eyes. And I said, seriously, every year we sell out. It's not big enough. We need a bigger room. And she just thought I was an idiot. And so, we arrived Monday.
Was it big enough?
No. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because we presented at the end of the day Thursday, I printed these flyers. And every time Matt or I met somebody, we said, are you coming to my talk? You coming to my talk?
That's funny.
And we handed them a flyer. And so the room sold out. By Tuesday, it's sold out because you have to register for each session.
Oh, wow.
And they were scrambling to try to find us a bigger room, and they couldn't. And then there was a waiting list line on Thursday as we presented because people were hoping that people that registered wouldn't show up. So they filled every seat. I mean, they were literally, there's one, and they would like pluck somebody from the hallway and put it in. It was great.
Be honest with me for a second. Was like your ego, was your ego had to grow a little bit that day?
Oh, well, see.
Come on.
But part of it was I couldn't have a special set and have it empty. Because there were some people,
right.
I mean, I have a friend, I shouldn't say his name, and he presented at the same time as me, and there were 40 people in his room. So he was really hurt.
Was he a special set room?
No.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
But still 40 people, I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, you had 40 people once, when you first started out.
Oh, but I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will again. But so I needed it to sell out. I mean, it was like, it'd be embarrassing if it didn't.
Right.
So that's why we did the flyers and all that other stuff. And it was great. Plus, you get that energy. That is a good crowd. I mean, that crowd wants to be there. They're excited to be there. Plus, it was Thursday, and the end of the day, it was right before Hillary Clinton was going to go on. So they're ready to party at this point, So they were really in good spirits and a good mood. And we had a pre-show. We had this like 10-minute warm-up reel that was playing before we started officially. And so it was just kind of creating this excitement in the air. It was fun. It was, and this was, for both of us, this was our brand new, we were unveiling our 2014 talks.
So you guys weren't speaking together. You were each sort of doing your own talks.
Yeah, we went on stage and we did 10 minutes of just shtick. Right. Just jokes. And then Matt did a 45-minute set. And then he introduced me, and then I did my 45-minute set.
And this was your new talk, which you do. And for those of you who don't know yet, this is Eric's primary source of enjoyment, and is going around the country and speaking on green building. So you're right in your element here. And every year you do a new talk, and you basically tour around the country like a rock star.
Right.
Well received in some areas, not so well received.
I'm married with children, boring, non-drinking rock star.
So did you debut the new talk here at GreenBuild?
Yeah, and I it's kind of what I've been doing for the last few years. So it takes me about 3 months to make the talk. It's a lot of effort, and in a typical 1 hour talk, I'll have 360 slides. I mean, I go through slides very quickly, so it's a lot of work. So I debuted it at GreenBuild. That's the talk I'll give all through 2014 now, and then I'll get sick of it and retire it, and then debut the next one next year's GreenBuild. And
will now? Do you have to now make edits or changes, or are there things that like that didn't really work so well? I need to take that out and find something else.
Leading up to GreenBuild, I did 4 rehearsals with college kids.
Okay.
So I'd set up these kind of low profile gigs
in previews.
The show was in previews, as they call it in showbiz. So I was able to rehearse it, and it was terrible. It's always bad. And I got to try jokes and see which worked and which didn't. And then I made those tweaks. And then by GreenBuild, it's pretty tight.
Okay.
And it'll get a lot better too, because they're. Part of the excitement of the GreenBuild talk was, I was improvising a lot of it because I have that big crowd and they're full of energy. When I do it today, I have to do it today. For instance, it'll be better because I keep building on that experience and getting better at what I say and knowing how to phrase it more efficiently. And
you're doing it again today? Is that for Toyota?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I do. So. And I'll do it about 70 to 80 times in a year. So I'm really sick of it by the end of the year.
Right. And so what was the talk called, or what is the talk called?
The talk is called Designing for the Post-Carbon Economy. It's zero or nothing. which actually reads better than it sounds.
Designing for the post-carbon economy, it's zero or nothing.
Zero, like meaning net zero energy, net zero water, net zero waste, net zero carbon.
Right.
That's our goal, is zero.
And it's not online yet. When it goes online, we'll put the link in the show notes. But do you want to give us the highlights of it?
Well, you can download the slides if you like for free now from our website. We'll have it in the show notes too. But if you go to organicarchitect.com, you can get it. The highlights of it are I start with this video that's, it's a professorial looking man, and he's talking about carbon and how we need to do something about carbon. And our carbon emissions are just overwhelming in nature, and the planet is warming. The trouble is, this video is from 1958.
Interesting.
So you watch this video; it's all completely relevant today. And then I go, this video is from 1958, and the audience is just taken aback by it, meaning that we really haven't moved much. And then the overall theme of the talk is that everybody in the room has to stop apologizing for being green, because that's essentially what we've been doing for the last 30 years. We've been going to our clients and saying, "Gosh, is it okay if I don't put cancer-causing chemicals in your building? Is that all right? I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but is it okay if we produce our own energy, sir?" And that's stupid. And basically, I say to them, and I yell at them, "Stop doing that. It's annoying. You're in the right. You're the good guys. You don't need to do that." And then I break down the case of why, using biomimicry. I go through examples of how nature builds, and I talk about termites and birds' nests and beavers and all sorts of things. And then I talk about how humans build, which is the total opposite. And then that's a very funny montage of stuff.
And would you say is your talk, because you give this around the country, is it more for like, do you have to be in the green industry to get it?
No. It's designed to be universal. So I'm very careful about it. Giving a green build, I can play it up a little more because everybody in the room is doing green stuff. But normally, I'm speaking to normal people, non-green people who were kind of vaguely interested in green or trying to do more of it.
Which is I remember this expression from I think 9th grade civics, carrying coals to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Because you don't carry coals to Newcastle because I guess Newcastle has a lot of coal. So you don't need to carry coals to Newcastle. The idea being you don't need to sell a green audience on your message. They're your biggest fans.
Yeah, you don't have to sell ice to an Eskimo either.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it is sort of the lay person, or what we can call normal people. Those are the ones you want to reach with your message, and that's what you do try and do.
Well, also I've had, it's been 15 years of public speaking now, and I've tried everything. I've tried being just serious, and that's not really me. But I've also tried very subtle differences. I've tried just attacking Republicans, and that doesn't work. I've tried just attacking Democrats, so that Republicans don't get upset.
Right.
That doesn't work. I've tried attacking both of them, and in past years, I've actually counted how many times did I criticize a Republican, and how many times and made sure that they were equal. And that didn't work. And now I figured, you know what? I don't need to apologize for the truth. I'm just going to attack everybody and tell them this is what happened and explain it to them. I also no longer sell them on the idea of climate change. I walk in there saying I'm going to assume it's a given because I have a brain and cognitive abilities.
Right.
So I'm not going to argue that. I'm not even going to argue it with you. So I kind of take that part out of the talk. I'm jumping into the talk with both feet, and climate change is a given. We need to do something about it. That's a given. The codes are changing. That's already a given. And I'm setting it in the real context, because what I found is a lot of speakers are still spending a lot of time with this is green building, and this is what LEED is, and this is what carbon's bad, and everybody knows that because they have the internet and watch TV. So you don't need to do that. And I have to say that I went to every single session I could at GreenBuild. Every time there was an opportunity to go to a session, I went to one. And I have to say that every session I went to was disappointing, in that they spent 20 to 30 minutes on this is what a green building is. It's like, no crap. I mean, you got everybody in the room already knows that.
Right. So they were carrying coals to Newcastle.
Exactly. And literally. And you don't need to do that. People are smart. That's why I said it in the net zero thing. I said, this is a smart room. Go faster.
Right.
That's how I'm able to get through 360 slides in an hour, because I'm showing them stuff quickly, and they keep up. That's what people do. Most presentations were painfully boring, and you know it because everybody's checking their phone and they're playing Fruit Ninja or whatever they're doing, and they're not listening.
Fruit Ninja is so 3 years ago, by the way.
Well, Ski Safari then, but everybody, in my talks, everybody's like on the edge of their seat watching me, because they know at any minute I could do something nuts.
Right.
Or they might have a watermelon thrown at them. Like you never know. And I want that feeling of I can't blink or I'll miss something, because the slides are going that quickly.
What would you say was the demographic sort of age of the range that you saw there? Like, because sometimes, I could see how somebody might think, 40 years old and up, like a bunch of old guys sitting around trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this green building thing?
Oh God, no! At GreenBuild, you have the nubile, young, perky, 22-year-old girls that say things to me like, "Oh, I read your book," and I go, "Get away from me!" Like I can't even look at you. All the way up to 75-year-old guys.
Okay.
And everybody in between. It is a very diverse group. The only thing you don't see, not a lot of black people.
Interesting.
I have to say. And I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up in a school that was 80% black. I mean, I thought I was black until I was 11, actually. And so I'm pretty sensitive to that, and I just don't see a lot of color in the room. And they're trying. They're doing a bunch of things with green schools and with faith-based initiatives and with affordable housing and other things that would hopefully get more diversity of type. But, part of it is the problem with the profession. Architecture is still an old white male profession generally.
Unfortunately, yeah, it still is. I mean, I've noticed that just in my experiences of helping candidates get licensed, here in California. It's definitely still an old man's profession, but I think it is changing. And I think, over the next several years, we're going to see hopefully huge swings in that as sort of the old retire and hopefully a lot more young blood comes in. Yeah.
But generally, it's a pretty diverse group. I also feel that we're really well represented on the West Coast. Most of the speakers seem to be Seattle, Portland, California-ish.
Right.
Most of the cutting edge stuff seems to be coming out of the West. It's not to say the other chapters aren't doing amazing things too. That they are. It just and it might be my bias because I'm obviously coming from California and having been part of all of the different California chapters. Maybe it's just because those are the people I know. But if you just look at the speaker roster, the net zero buildings are coming out of the West. The net zero water is coming out of there's a lot of stuff on the coast and not as much in the middle, but that's all changing too.
Was there a lot of stuff on the East Coast? Because I guess in some respects the West Coast can I guess still seem a little more experimental, where the East Coast can be a little more set in its ways. Because the East Coast was developed first. There's sort of more history there on the East Coast. I don't know.
I don't know because New York has this way of doing nothing, and then of course having the best green building ever, like 4 Times Square, for instance.
Right.
So the 3 case studies on net zero water were all East Coast studies.
Were they really?
And which is interesting because they have freeze thaw and we don't in California. So
right.
they had particular challenges with that. They also tend to be a little wetter because they have hurricane fueled Gulf Stream type stuff, and we are in a drought, which is also interesting. So yeah, I don't know if you can actually say that, but it just seems like, it's an exciting time to be on the West Coast, I think.
When you were, and how many days was GreenBuild? You got there, to Monday?
I got there Monday, and then it kind of formally ended on, was it Friday?
And you don't drink coffee either, do you?
No, God, no.
I don't know how you. And you were probably up like, you know.
Oh yeah, I was getting like 3 hours sleep a night. It was brutal. That's usually I don't get much anyway. I'm more of a 4, 5, 6 hour type guy. But at 3, I'm basically brain dead. I couldn't stay awake for Bon Jovi. I was fighting. I was fighting to stay awake, and I really wanted, because how often do you get to see a free concert with Bon Jovi and in a small, intimate, setting?
What time was the show?
It's like 9:30.
Yeah, no, I would have probably fell asleep too.
9:30 East Coast time, mind you.
Right.
So,
yeah, 6:30 West Coast.
So it's even more pathetic. So I didn't get to see Bon Jovi at all. But oh well.
Didn't your wife wanted to see like cell phone pics or something? Weren't you supposed to like send her pics of,
Yeah, but my friend Ted is a great photographer, and he took these he's got this camera, and he took pics that look like you, like as close as you are now.
Right.
So I'll just send her Ted's pics.
And what was there a closing keynote?
It was a little weird this year. Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the opening keynote. It was supposed to occur on Wednesday. She had a scheduling conflict, and at the last minute they changed it. So they ended up having the opening keynote Thursday night and the closing keynote Friday morning. It's a little weird.
That's weird. So
they didn't call it the opening keynote. The closing keynote was what's his name? Nate Silver from 536.
Is he the stats guy?
Yeah. So he's the one that predicted the presidential election.
Yeah.
And he talked about. There was such a nerdgasm in the room. The guys were all like, tweeting weird things like, "I have such a bro crush on him," romance kind of.
Right.
And he's this skinny little weird guy, and he was a great speaker, and he just gave this fascinating talk about statistics and separating the signal from the noise, and how the best example I can think of, and this somewhat applies to architecture, is there could be 20 polls in a row saying that Obama is going to win, but then the 21st poll will say Romney is going to win, and all the news attention's on the 21st poll, but it ignores the 20 that preceded it.
Right.
And because of that, it's given unfair weight.
Right.
And that's why Fox News incorrectly predicted the election.
Right.
Because they were listening to their own noise.
But what did he talk statistically? Did he talk anything about green building or climate change or any of that stuff? Because he must have good stats on that stuff.
No,
or is it just more in general?
No, he just talked generally about stuff. But it applied to all of us because we deal with data and science and numbers all the time. So just his general talk about signal versus noise was surprisingly relevant, even though he didn't go into specifics about climate change.
Yeah, and actually that's probably another good show topic for another show, because I would imagine the noise being sort of the media and how the media latches onto this stuff.
So it's it's a good talk if people are frantically scribbling notes. And so I had pages of notes. Everybody's doing that. I go to a lot of conferences because I speak at a lot of these things. And a lot of them, they picked really boring speakers. I mean, they're smart people, but they're not good at presenting. And that was the case for a lot of the sessions I attended at GreenBuild too. A lot of them, the speakers almost seemed to resent being there. They seem to kind of gloss over everything, like, oh, you already know this, so I'm not going to show it. But then you think, well, then why did you put it in your slides to begin with? It's almost like they felt like they were stuck because they were giving their stump speech, their regular set of slides, but to a smarter room or a room that has more experience and not addressing it. I mean, that's why you have to kind of, if you're going to speak to a group like that, you got to step your game up a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody's smart who's there. They're in tune with what's going on because, I mean, they paid money to be there. What was there somebody or some talk that you saw that was sort of the biggest surprise in your mind, or somebody that you didn't know and it was like, wow, that was a great talk?
Well, the Nate Silver keynote was like that because I'd never seen him speak. I like that, but there were no breakout sessions, and I hate to say this, there were no breakout sessions that I saw that dazzled me. I guess the best one was Brad Jacobson from EHDD talked about the Lucille Packard Foundation building that they did, which is a gorgeous building design-wise, but also happens to be net zero energy. And that was a great talk, if only because he just spoke from the heart. Yeah, this is what we did. This was the process. This is how we made decisions. At one point he's talking about how they were able to justify the cost of triple glazed windows. And as much as you think that would be a boring thing, it was fascinating because he said, yeah, it turns out that they pay for themselves instantly because they were able to reduce the size of the heating system because of them. It was just like, and he showed all the numbers. So that was good because it got into the depth that you wanted. But most of them
was he an architect?
Yeah, Brad Jacobson. He's a great EHDD, Escherick Holmesy, Dodge and Davis.
Okay.
From San Francisco. And it's a great looking building. And so that one I liked quite a bit. But most of them were just, God, it was tedious. And they show these slides with Times New Roman font in black on white background, and then they read everything they just put on the screen. It was just painful. Painful.
You didn't call them out on it? You didn't raise your hand and say...
Well, all that's going to do is just piss them off. And
No.
They can't change their slides then,
What was the single most, I guess, memorable thing about GreenBuild? Like, all said and done, what was the one thing that, like, sticks in your mind the most, other than how great your talk was?
GreenBuild is a weird conference in that, I was awake the whole time, basically. I didn't get much sleep. I went to everything I could. I went to every session I could. You can only go to one at a time. I went to the entire trade show floor. I went to special events like the leadership luncheon. And I still feel like I only got to see maybe 25% of it because there's so much going on at the same time. In a typical night there's 5 parties going on all at the same time. You can't be at every one. You have to make tough decisions. And so, it's this like crazy... It's this crazy mad dash of, people are in a strange city. They don't know their way around. Everybody's texting me, what party are you at? Because I'm at this one. And, like a lot of coordinating. So when I think of GreenBuild, it's just this kind of blur of people and meeting new people and seeing old friends. And it's, it's like a week-long party with learning. It's overwhelming. I mean, that's why it took me a week to recover. I was so tired.
Are you feeling sort of positive about the future of the green building movement after going to GreenBuild? Because GreenBuild sounds like it's obviously fun, it's obviously interesting, but it also has some of those elements of the boring talks, or the sort of uninspiring maybe talk. So, do you feel we're moving forward here?
Yeah, I would say that every year there seems to be kind of a larger theme that bubbles up to the surface, and you can't know it until afterwards, after the fact, and it happens by accident because it happens by there were 20 different sessions that focused on this and 5 different exhibitors that talked about this. It just kind of rises. Last year was very much about transparency, manufacturer transparency, EPDs, and life cycle assessment, and this idea that every manufacturer is going to disclose, what's in their products to see if they're healthy. That was definitive theme last year that just kind of rose up. So this year's topics it seemed to be very much about resiliency, and how can your buildings withstand the next Hurricane Sandy, and looking at things like infrastructure and but not as this kind of nice to have thing, but as a need to have. There was a definitive shift that I had sensed, and again, it could just be my wishful thinking, but there was this palpable sense that we're not asking anymore. We're not asking your permission anymore. We can't. Just our own basic survival depends on this idea of we need to make buildings that can withstand rising floodwaters, a warming world, a wetter world, a more unpredictable world, disruptions in food, disruptions in energy. I mean, all these things are now coming true. I mean, that was a main theme of my speech too, but I had sensed it. I had sensed it in the keynote sessions. I sensed it. I mean, when you have the head of housing and urban development talking about it, and it's part of their strategy for the coming decade, then suddenly it's a serious thing. So that was a big shift that I felt this year.
Where is it next year?
New Orleans.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And how much is it? Do you know how much a regular
Conference pass?
Yeah.
Well, they have different levels. If you're a student, I think it's in the kind of, I don't know, $700-ish range.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No, and it's funny because every year, 50 people that I haven't spoken to in a long time suddenly come out of the woodwork and say, "Can you get me a free pass?"
Right.
And the answer is no. I can't get me a free pass.
Right. Well, it's funny because you know what I was thinking? I would love, speaking of free passes, if there was a way we could sort of tie this into, us, architect exam prep, getting, some intern architects somehow, access to the thing. I'll let you work on that.
I'll work on it.
Because I think it's interesting, and the younger generation. I mean, that's really who needs to be going to this, especially learning from sort of the older guys. And I put you in that category now. But people need to hear what you guys are saying.
Yeah. I also find that it's so serious. A lot of the sessions were so serious and so like.
You know what you need to
depressing.
do? You know what you need to do is
get a haircut.
No. Is you need to work with GreenBuild on how to give a presentation. So basically, reaching out and with Skype and Google Hangouts, I mean, you could easily reach reach the other speakers and be like, "This is how you make your presentation interesting."
I'd love to do that. It would be so. It'd be fun to do, and it would really help because there was bad slides, bad. At one point, it's a bad talk when I'm sitting there and I'm counting the times that the speaker is going,
Right.
And there was one session, I was up to like 147 uhs. That's how I'm passing the time. It's like,
right.
Just get me to the juicy bit, the info that I want. Why are you doing this, just terrible reading? There was, I've been to conferences where the speaker gets up and goes, "Good news, I've only got 5 slides." It's like, yeah, but you're going to speak for an hour.
Yeah, I know, right?
So that means that it's 12 and a half minutes per slide. I mean, that just seems like a lot to stare at one slide. So, slides are free. I mean, that's why I have 360 of them in the current talk, because they're free. So I can flash an image as a punchline or flash it as an inspiration, and I don't even have to mention it. It's very powerful.
Well, it is, and I mean that's just the way we are all wired now. I mean, we're not wired to sit and look at a slide for 12 and a half minutes. We'll look at it for 30 seconds, and if it's not changing, we're going to get on our cell phone and start texting or whatever else we're doing. But right. If we're keeping it, in this MTV world, if we're keeping it like you're doing, I mean, you got 365 slides, you're doing 45 minutes, so people aren't going to have a chance to sort of look away or text because they want to see what's coming next.
No, I don't want them to. I want them to be riveted. And there's plus everybody's afraid to laugh about this. So Matt Grokoff and I, when we presented, he's like me, he's presenting a funny, humorous, inspirational speech, and we both found that we need to make them laugh right up front, so that way they have permission. They know that they have permission to laugh throughout it.
Exactly.
You can't do 10 minutes of serious and then put a joke in.
Right.
Because then they're like, well, am I allowed to laugh? So we start with there's a fart joke right at the front that immediately it's not a fart joke, but there's a joke right up front that basically tells them it's okay to do that.
Yeah, I think you need to get a hold of GreenBuild and put something together for them and have them pay you for that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right, let me hit one more iTunes review here.
Like what you hear? Show the love by giving us a review on iTunes.
All right, so I think that is going to wrap it up. So in the show notes, we will have those below the episode. And as soon as do we know when your session recording is going to be available in the next couple of weeks, or do we?
Yeah, I'm expecting it this week, and then I'll make it available on YouTube as well.
Okay, cool. Well, Eric, as our special guest for GreenBuild, and as our co-host here, but thank you for going to this and sharing your experience, your unbiased experience with us with GreenBuild.
Sure, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun to go to. But think about it. It's hard to take a week off of work in general. Then you got to fly there and the hotel, and then the conference itself. It's a big expense. But I really think it's worth it.
And 35,000 people seem to do it every year, right?
Right, exactly.
Alrighty, we will talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the ARE Podcast. Be sure to visit architectexamprep.com and check out our other podcast episodes, video tips, and the ARE blog. Remember to plan, practice, and pass.